We don't
We don't
serve
serve homeless
homeless
people
people
here.
here. Samantha's voice cut across the diner loud enough for every table to hear. She didn't lower her tone. Her words carried like an order. Ethan froze. His coat hung loose, his shoes frayed, but his stance was steady. The line behind him shifted uneasily. Someone coughed. Another whispered, "Did she really just say that?" Jake leaned over from the bar, a smirk tugging his lips. "Samantha, relax. He's probably just another drifter. Can't pay anyway." The two exchanged glances, laughing under their breath but loud enough that no one could miss it. A woman holding her child gasped, pulling the boy closer. The sound of silverware on plates paused around the room. Ethan lowered a bill onto the counter without a word. His eyes stayed fixed, calm, unshaken. But Samantha snatched it up like it was dirty, holding it with only 2 fingers. "Coffee, right? Guess we're running a charity now." Laughter again, sharp and cruel. No apology, no shame. The diner fell into a heavy silence except for the mocking voices at the counter. Ethan didn't move. He just stared back at them, his face unreadable. But Ethan is more than just a vagabond, they think. A shocking truth is waiting to explode, and when it's revealed, the diner will never be the same again. The corner booth received him like an old confession booth, hidden yet exposed. Ethan settled into the shadows, maintaining that practiced calm of someone who had learned to navigate hostile waters without making ripples. His fingers traced the table's surface, finding the initials he'd carved there decades ago when this building was still his mother's original diner. Samantha approached with the enthusiasm of someone walking to their own execution. No greeting parted her lips. The menu hit the table with a slap that echoed through the half-empty restaurant. "I hope you have money," she said, her voice cold as January rain. The words dripped with assumption, with the casual cruelty of someone who'd never questioned their right to judge. Jake's laugh carried from the bar, a knowing chuckle shared with the morning regulars. He winked at Samantha, a co-conspirator in their daily performance of selective service. The two of them moved like practiced dancers in their choreography of contempt. "Just a sandwich and coffee," Ethan said, his voice steady as bedrock. "Turkey, if you have it." Samantha's pen scratched across her pad with unnecessary force, each stroke an indictment. She turned without acknowledgement, her blonde ponytail whipping behind her like a flag of dismissal. From his vantage point, Ethan observed the theater of inequality playing out before him. A white couple entered moments after him, greeted with smiles that transformed Samantha's face into something almost human. She led them to a window booth, chatting about the weather, pouring complimentary coffee before they'd even settled. "The good people deserve the good seats," Jake muttered to another server, loud enough for Ethan to hear. Their eyes found him in unison, twin beams of disgust that they didn't bother to mask. The other server, a young woman named Ashley, shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Silence, Ethan knew, was Complicity's favorite costume. He pulled out his phone, its screen cracked but functional, and began typing notes with deliberate precision. Samantha noticed from across the room, her eyes narrowing. She whispered something to Jake, who straightened his shoulders and puffed his chest, a rooster preparing for a fight he thought he'd already won. The morning sun slanted through the windows, casting long shadows across the checkered floor. In that light, the diner looked almost like it did in Ethan's memories, a place where everyone was welcome, where his mother Ellie had served dignity alongside the daily specials. But shadows, he'd learned, had a way of revealing truth as much as concealing it. 23 minutes passed before Samantha returned. The sandwich landed on the table with another deliberate thud, the bread compressed and pale, the meat visible at the edges showing an unhealthy gray-green tinge. The coffee cup contained liquid that had clearly been sitting since yesterday, a film of oil skating across its surface like pollution on a dying lake. "This coffee seems old," Ethan observed, his tone conversational, giving her an opportunity for grace. Samantha's eye roll was theatrical enough for Broadway. What do you expect for cheap prices? This isn't the Ritz. Her hand went to her hip, a pose of defiance that dared him to complain further. Jake materialized beside her like a summoned demon, his bulk intended to intimidate. Is there a problem here? The question wasn't a question at all, but a threat wrapped in customer service language. I'm simply asking about the quality of the food, Ethan replied, maintaining his composure like a man holding a winning hand in a game where everyone else thought he was bluffing. Jake's laugh was sharp as broken glass. People like you should be grateful for anything to eat. You know how many actual paying customers we serve here? The emphasis on actual cut through the air between them. Other diners began to notice the confrontation, their forks pausing midway to their mouths. A table of construction workers watched with interest. An elderly white woman clutched her purse tighter, as if Ethan's presence might somehow threaten her belongings from across the room. Ethan lifted the sandwich carefully, examining the meat more closely. The turkey showed definitive signs of spoilage, not just old, but dangerously past its prime. His phone appeared again, and he captured several quick images, his movements subtle but deliberate. What the hell do you think you're doing? Samantha snatched the plate away, soup sloshing over the rim. You don't like it, go somewhere else. We don't need your kind here causing trouble. My kind? Ethan asked, his voice still calm, but something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, but disappointment deep as a well. You know what she means, Jake interjected, stepping closer. Don't play dumb. Ethan's fingers moved across his phone screen, typing a message. Phase 1 complete. Document everything. Prepare legal team. He hit send without breaking eye contact with Jake, who mistook his steady gaze for submission. The construction workers had returned to their meals, but their conversation had shifted. That's messed up, one muttered to another, though neither moved to intervene. The elderly woman had relaxed her grip on her purse, but kept shooting glances at Ethan as if he might spontaneously combust. I'd like to speak with the manager, Ethan said. Jake's grin spread like an oil spill. You're looking at him. Morning shift supervisor, and I'm telling you to pay for that food you just contaminated with your hands and leave. Contaminated? Ethan's eyebrow rose slightly. I merely examined what you served me. $20, Jake said. Pay up and get out or we call the cops. The bell chimed again. A Latina woman entered with her teenage daughter, both dressed for church. They paused, sensing the tension immediately. The woman's eyes found Ethan's, and something passed between them. Recognition not of faces, but of situations, of moments when dignity becomes a battlefield. Jake's voice rose to performance level, ensuring every patron would witness what happened next. Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time to leave our establishment. We have the right to refuse service to anyone. The words rolled off his tongue with practiced ease, a script he'd clearly delivered before. Especially to troublemakers, Samantha added, her voice honeyed with false concern. We have to think about our regular customers' comfort. How exactly am I making trouble? Ethan asked, his hands flat on the table, his body language deliberately non-threatening. By existing? By asking about spoiled food? Jake moved closer, lowering his voice to a growl meant only for Ethan's ears. Look at yourself. Black, dressed like you, crawled out of a dumpster, probably smell like one too. You're scaring away our good customers. The hatred in his voice was pure, undiluted by any pretense of professionalism. Samantha's giggle tinkled like broken china. Several patrons looked away, uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. The Latina woman Maria, her name tag would later reveal, stepped forward. You cannot treat customers this way, she said, her accent thick but her meaning clear. This is discrimination. Jake wheeled on her, his face reddening. You want to join him outside? because I can arrange that too. Please, Maria's daughter tugged at her arm. Let's just go somewhere else. But Maria stood firm. No, mija. Sometimes we must speak. Samantha pulled out her phone, making a show of dialing. I'm calling security. We have a situation with multiple troublemakers now. She spoke into the phone with theatrical urgency. Yes, send someone immediately. They're refusing to leave and creating a disturbance. Jake returned his attention to Ethan. You heard her. Police are coming. You want to leave vertical or horizontal? Ethan rose slowly from his seat, his movements deliberate and dignified. Samantha immediately blocked his path to the door. Where do you think you're going? You haven't paid. For food I couldn't eat? Ethan's voice remained level. Not our problem, Jake said, shoulder-checking Ethan as he passed. $20. Now. Ethan reached for his wallet, a worn leather piece that had seen better decades. Jake snatched it from his hands, dumping its contents onto the floor. Bills scattered like autumn leaves, some landing in a small puddle of spilled coffee near the counter. Coins rolled under tables, their metallic songs a symphony of humiliation. Pick it up, Jake commanded. Every penny, then get out. The diner fell silent except for the hum of refrigerators and the distant clatter from the kitchen. Every eye watched as Ethan Walker, founder and CEO of the Ellie's Diner chain, knelt on the floor of his own restaurant. He gathered each bill with methodical precision, his dignity intact despite his position. As his fingers closed around the last quarter, he pulled out his phone one final time. Execute Plan B, he typed. All teams, immediately. Jake laughed, mistaking the action for defeat. Calling someone to pick you up? Good. Make it quick. Ethan stood, placed exactly $20 on the counter, and looked Jake directly in the eye. You have no idea what you've just done. Is that a threat? Jake's hand moved to his hip where pepper spray hung from his belt. No, Ethan replied. It's a promise. Maria watched from near the door, her daughter's hand in hers. We should stay, she whispered. As witnesses. The bell chimed again. 3 security guards entered, their uniforms crisp, their faces already set in expressions of assumed guilt. They looked at Ethan the way people look at problems to be solved, rather than humans to be respected. These people, Jake pointed at Ethan and Maria, are trespassing and refusing to leave. The lead guard, a man whose name tag read Tom, approached Ethan with his hand already on his radio. Sir, I need you to exit the premises immediately. On what grounds? Ethan asked. Don't need grounds, Tom replied. Private property. Let's go. The morning that had started with possibility was curdling into something else entirely. Outside, clouds gathered like witnesses to what was about to unfold. The portrait of Ellie Walker looked down from the wall, her painted eyes seeming to say, Not yet, son. But soon. The security guards formed a semicircle around Ethan, their bodies a wall of implied violence. Tom keyed his radio, his voice carrying across the diner. We have a 1054 at Ellie's. Possible vagrant refusing to comply. The code word vagrant fell like a gavel. Judgment passed before trial began. He's not a vagrant, Maria interjected, stepping forward despite her daughter's protests. He's a customer. They served him spoiled food and now they're throwing him out for complaining. Samantha's voice pitched higher, playing victim to perfection. She's with him. They're probably working together, some kind of scam. Check his pockets, I bet he stole something. Ma'am, please step back, Tom directed at Maria, his hand moving to his utility belt where zip ties hung like promises of arrest. Jake pulled out his phone, starting a live stream. Check this out, everybody. We got troublemakers trying to shake down a family restaurant. He narrated for his audience, his version of events bearing no resemblance to reality. This guy came in here, no money, demanding free food. Now his accomplice is backing him up. The comments started rolling in on his screen, a digital mob forming in real time. The construction workers had abandoned their pretense of eating, watching the scene unfold with the fascination of people viewing a car crash. One of them, a younger black man, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "This ain't right," he muttered to his colleague. "Not our business," came the reply. Ashley, the young server who'd remained silent, finally spoke up. "Jake, maybe we should just—" "Shut up, Ashley." Samantha cut her off. "You want to keep your job?" The door chimed again with violent urgency. 3 more security guards entered, followed by 2 local police officers. The breakfast crowd pressed against the walls, phones out, recording everything. The diner had transformed into an arena, and Ethan stood at its center, calm as the eye of a hurricane. "Officers," Tom addressed the police, "we need these individuals removed. They're trespassing and causing a disturbance." The senior officer, badge reading Kowalski, looked at Ethan with the weary expression of someone who'd already decided guilt. "Sir, I'm going to need you to turn around and place your hands behind your back." "For what crime?" Ethan asked. "Disorderly conduct. Trespassing. We'll sort it out at the station." Jake's live stream audience had grown to hundreds. "See this? This is what happens when we let anyone walk in here. They disturb our peaceful business and then cry discrimination." The comments section erupted with support for Jake, with slurs and celebrations of taking out the trash. Maria's daughter was crying now, tugging at her mother's dress. "Please, Mama, let's go." "Document everything," Maria told her daughter in Spanish. "Record it all." Tom reached for Ethan's arm. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Ethan pulled back slightly. "Do not touch me without cause." "Resisting now, too?" Officer Kowalski's hand went to his weapon, not drawing, but resting there, a reminder of how quickly situations could escalate when black men didn't comply. The young construction worker stood up. "Yo, officers, I've been here the whole time. This man didn't do anything wrong. They served him bad food and—" "Sit down," the second officer commanded, "or you'll be joining him." The worker sat, but his phone remained raised, recording everything. Samantha seized the moment to escalate further. "He threatened us. He said we don't know what we've done. That's a threat, right? We fear for our safety." Jake's patience snapped like a brittle twig. He lunged forward, shoving Ethan hard enough to send him stumbling into a nearby table. Dishes crashed to the floor, the sound explosive in the charged atmosphere. Maria screamed. Her daughter sobbed openly. Tom grabbed Ethan's arm, twisting it behind his back. "That's assault! You all saw it. He attacked Jake." "Are you insane?" Maria shouted. "Jake pushed him." "Shut up or you're next," Officer Kowalski warned. The live stream comments exploded with bloodthirsty glee. "Take him down. Finally, someone standing up to these people." The digital mob bayed for violence, feeding off the scene like vampires at a vein. Ethan's phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. Tom reached for it. "Evidence," he said. Just as his fingers closed around the device, the diner's door didn't just chime, it burst open with such force that everyone turned. 5 people in expensive suits entered in formation, their presence immediately shifting the room's energy. The lead figure, an imposing black woman in a charcoal Tom Ford suit, held up a badge. "Terry Hendricks, Chief Legal Counsel for Walker Enterprises. Remove your hands from Mr. Walker immediately." Tom's grip loosened in confusion. "Walker?" Samantha's face drained of color like water from a broken cup. Jake's phone trembled in his suddenly nerveless fingers, the live stream still rolling. Terry's voice cut through the confusion with surgical precision. "Mr. Walker, per your instructions, we've documented 17 health code violations, 11 instances of racial discrimination in the last hour alone, and have testimony from 23 former employees regarding systematic bias under current management." She turned to the police officers. "Officers, you're about to arrest the owner and founder of this establishment. I suggest you reconsider unless you want the lawsuit to name you personally." Jake's voice cracked like a teenager's. Owner? But, but... Another suited figure stepped forward, the regional health inspector. Based on preliminary inspection triggered by Mr. Walker's reports, I'm shutting this location immediately. The turkey alone could have killed someone. The live stream comments shifted like a tide. Wait, what? Is this real? Oh shit, they messed up. Ethan stood straight, his dignity restored not by revelation, but by its constant presence throughout his ordeal. He brushed dust from his coat with deliberate care, each movement measured and purposeful. Yes, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the now silent diner. Ethan Walker, the man who built this place to honor his mother's memory. The man you just tried to throw out of his own restaurant? The silence that followed Ethan's words was complete, a vacuum where shame and shock wrestled for dominance. He stepped away from Tom's loosened grip, straightening his weathered coat with the same care a king might adjust his crown. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the only sound as 50 people collectively held their breath. 5 years ago, Ethan began, his voice steady as granite. I opened this diner to honor my mother, Ellie Walker, a woman who, in 1965, was refused service at a lunch counter in this very building when it was called Murphy's. She sat for 6 hours waiting for a cup of coffee that never came. He moved to her portrait on the wall, his fingers touching the frame with reverence. She taught me that dignity wasn't something others could give or take. It was something you carried regardless of how the world saw you. So I bought this place, transformed it into something that would serve everyone with equal respect. Samantha had collapsed into a chair, her face white as the unused napkins on empty tables. Jake's phone had fallen from his hand, the live stream still broadcasting to thousands who watched the story flip like a coin, revealing its true face. Terry Hendricks opened her laptop, connecting it to the diner's TV screen normally reserved for sports. Security footage began to play, weeks of Samantha and Jake's behavior, their casual cruelty documented in high definition. There was Jake, dumping fresh food in the trash when black customers ordered it, serving them from the spoiled batch instead. There was Samantha, adding service fees only to certain customers' bills, pocketing the difference. We've been investigating for 3 months, Terry announced. Mr. Walker went undercover in his own establishments after receiving reports of discrimination. This was his 4th visit here, each time experiencing escalating hostility. The health inspector had returned from the kitchen, his face grim. I'm finding meat dated 3 weeks past expiration, mold in the refrigeration units, mouse droppings near food prep areas. This isn't just discrimination, it's attempted poisoning. Officer Kowalski had gone red, then white. Mr. Walker, sir, we couldn't have known. Couldn't you? Ethan asked quietly. Or did you see what you expected to see? A black man in worn clothes must be the problem, right? Tom, the security guard, backed toward the door, but Terry's voice stopped him. Thomas Mitchell, you're named in our lawsuit. 17 documented instances of excessive force against minority customers. We have video of everything. Jake finally found his voice, though it came out strangled. You can't... This is entrapment or something. No, Ethan replied. This is accountability. You see, I could have walked in here in an expensive suit, announced who I was, and you would have danced for me. But that wouldn't have shown me the truth. The truth is what you do when you think no one important is watching. Maria stepped forward, her daughter still clinging to her. Mr. Walker, we've eaten here for years. We always wondered why the service was so different for us. I'm sorry, Ethan said to her, and his voice carried the weight of genuine regret. This failure is mine. I trusted the wrong people to carry forward my mother's legacy. Ashley, the young server who'd remained silent, suddenly burst into tears. I wanted to say something, so many times, but I needed this job, and they said I'd never work in this town again if I spoke up. You'll be heard now, Terry assured her. We're deposing all staff. Whistleblowers will be protected and compensated. Ethan turned to address the room, every eye upon him. Samantha Miller, Jake Thompson, you're terminated effective immediately. Tom, your security company's contract with all Walker properties is severed. You'll be hearing from our legal department regarding criminal charges. Please, Samantha's voice broke as she stood on shaking legs. I have kids. I need this job. The black mothers you refused proper service to have children too, Ethan replied, his tone neither cruel nor forgiving, simply factual. They needed to be treated with dignity. Their children needed to see their parents respected. He looked at the construction workers, the elderly woman still clutching her purse, the other patrons who'd watched in silence. Everyone here who witnessed this and said nothing, you're complicit. Every time you see discrimination and choose comfort over conscience, you water the seeds of hatred. The young black construction worker who'd tried to speak up approached Ethan. Mr. Walker, I'm sorry I didn't do more. Ethan shook his hand. You stood when it mattered. That's more than most. Terry had been busy on her phone. Mr. Walker, the story's going viral. Jake's live stream backfired. The world is watching them discriminate against their own boss. The comments have completely turned. National news wants statements. Ethan looked at Jake, who stood frozen. His bravado evaporated like morning dew under an unforgiving sun. Your live stream, Ethan said. Thank you for that. You documented your own discrimination perfectly. That video will be Exhibit A. The collapse happened in stages, like a building demolished floor by floor. Jake fell first, his knees buckling as two police officers, different ones, called by Terry, placed him under arrest. The charges were read with mechanical precision. Assault, violation of civil rights, food safety crimes that could bring 5 years in prison. His live stream audience watched their hero become a criminal in real time. The comment section a battlefield between his defenders and the newly awakened. This is a mistake, Jake shouted as they cuffed him. I was protecting the business. I was following orders. Whose orders? Terry asked, her phone recording. We have your text messages, Jake. You bragged about keeping the riffraff out. You called it pest control. Samantha tried to run, a pathetic scramble for the door that ended when she tripped over the same spot where she'd made Ethan kneel. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She sobbed on the floor, the same floor where Ethan's money had scattered like her dignity now did. $50,000, the health inspector announced, writing citations. That's the minimum fine for the violations I've found so far. Criminal charges pending based on the intentional serving of spoiled food to targeted customers. I'll lose everything, Samantha wailed. Everything? Ethan asked. You mean like the customers who got food poisoning but couldn't afford lawyers? The elderly black woman last month who spent 3 days in the hospital after eating here? We tracked her down. She thought it was just bad luck. Tom, the security guard, hadn't been arrested, but Terry handed him papers. You're being sued personally for excessive force. Every incident is documented. Your security license will be revoked by end of business today. I was just doing my job, Tom protested. Your job, Terry replied, according to your company's own manual, was to de-escalate situations and ensure all customers were treated fairly. You did neither. The live stream had become a digital pillory. Jake's followers were abandoning him in droves, some posting screenshots of his previous racist comments, others sharing their own stories of discrimination at Ellie's. The hashtag Ellie's Diner Exposed began trending within the hour. Maria had been recording everything on her phone, her daughter translating for Spanish-speaking viewers who were sharing the story across Latino networks. This happens everywhere, Maria said to her camera. But today, finally, consequences. Ashley and 2 other servers approached Ethan. We have evidence, Ashley said. Recordings, photos. Jake and Samantha forced us to participate or lose our jobs. We kept everything hoping someday someone would listen. We're listening now, Terry assured them. Your cooperation will be noted and rewarded. Jake was being let out when he made one last attempt at defiance. I'll sue you for everything, This is America. Yes, Ethan replied. It is America, where actions have consequences, even for people who thought they were untouchable. Samantha had pulled herself to a sitting position, mascara streaming down her face in black rivers. Mr. Walker, please. I'm sorry, I can change. Can you? Ethan asked. Or are you sorry you got caught? You had 3 months of chances to change. Every black face that walked through that door was an opportunity for you to choose differently. You chose hate. The elderly white woman who'd clutched her purse earlier approached hesitantly. Mr. Walker, I want to apologize. I assumed I made judgments. Ma'am, Ethan said gently, recognizing it is the first step. What matters is what you do next time. Outside, news vans were already arriving. The story was spreading like wildfire across social media, each share adding fuel to conversations about discrimination, about assumptions, about the dangers of judging books by their worn covers. 1 week later, Ellie's Diner reopened under a banner reading, "Under new management, same old values." The walls had been repainted, the equipment replaced, but Ellie Walker's portrait remained, now joined by photos of the diverse customers who'd made the diner their home over the years. Ethan stood before his assembled staff, some old, many new, all trained in what he called aggressive hospitality. My mother, he began, his voice carrying the weight of history, used to say that dignity was like water necessary for life and everyone's right to access. She taught me that food doesn't just nourish the body, it feeds the soul of a community. He gestured to the dining room, where Maria and her daughter sat at a table of honor, where the young construction worker who'd spoken up now wore a manager's badge, where Ashley had been promoted to head server. This place failed its mission. Under my watch, it became the very thing my mother fought against. That changes today. The new policy was simple but revolutionary. 50 free meals daily for anyone who needed them, no questions asked. A community board where people could pay forward meals for strangers, training programs for at-risk youth, and most importantly, a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind. Some of you, Ethan addressed the staff, were here before. You remained silent when you should have spoken. I'm giving you a second chance, not because you deserve it, but because I believe in redemption. Prove me right. An elderly black woman entered, moving slowly with a walker. The staff rushed to help, but she waved them off, making her way to Ethan. I knew your mother, she said, her voice like aged whiskey. Ellie would be proud. Not of what happened, but of what you're doing about it. Mrs. Robinson, Ethan recognized her, embracing her gently. You were here that day in 1965. I was, she confirmed. Sat right next to your mama for 6 hours. Today I'm having that coffee we never got. As she was seated with honor, served with reverence, the weight of history seemed to lift slightly from the room. This wasn't just about food or service. It was about reclaiming space, about insisting on humanity in places where it had been denied. The news coverage had been extensive. Jake faced prison time. Samantha had declared bankruptcy. Tom had lost his security license and faced multiple lawsuits. But Ethan didn't focus on their downfall in his interviews. Instead, he talked about systems, about how prejudice was taught and reinforced, about how good people could do terrible things when they thought no one important was watching. The problem, he told a reporter, isn't just the Jakes and Samanthas of the world, it's the silence that enables them. Every customer who saw discrimination and said nothing, every employee who feared for their job more than they cared for justice, every person who thought it wasn't their problem. He paused, looking directly into the camera. But here's the truth. Injustice anywhere is everyone's problem, because the dignity we deny others diminishes our own humanity. Ethan stood at the entrance of Ellie's diner as the lunch rush began, watching the diverse crowd that now filled the space. The reporter had one final question. What would you say to viewers who think this was all staged, that you set them up? I gave them every opportunity to serve me with basic human dignity, Ethan replied, his voice steady. I wasn't testing them. I was revealing them. The same test happens every day to people who don't own the building, who can't call lawyers, who have to swallow humiliation with their overpriced coffee. He looked directly at the camera, speaking not to the reporter, but to everyone watching. If you see injustice, silence is complicity. If you have power, unused it becomes oppression's ally. If you witness discrimination, your discomfort is less important than their dignity. A young black child entered with his grandmother, eyes wide at the bustling diner. Ethan knelt to his level. Welcome to Ellie's. Everyone's welcome here. The boy smiled, and in that smile was the future Ethan was building. One meal, one moment, one stand at a time. Tomorrow, Ethan said, rising and addressing the camera once more. You'll walk into spaces where you have power as customers, employers, bystanders. You'll see moments where you can choose between comfort and conscience. The question isn't whether discrimination exists. The question is, what will you do when you see it? The bell chimed as more customers arrived. Black, white, brown, young, old, rich, poor, all entering a space where dignity was the only currency that mattered. The portrait of Ellie Walker seemed to glow in the afternoon light, her painted smile a benediction on what her son had reclaimed. Dignity, Ethan concluded his final words to the camera, isn't something we grant others. It's something we recognize as inherent in every human being. The moment we forget that, we lose our own. The screen faded to black with white text appearing. Dignity is not a gift to be given, it is a right to be defended. Stand up, speak out, be the change. The story of Ellie's diner spread across the country, not as a tale of revenge, but as a mirror held up to society's face. In boardrooms and break rooms, in churches and classrooms, people discussed what they would have done, what they had done, what they would do differently tomorrow. And somewhere, in diners and shops and offices across America, people began to pay closer attention to the service given, to the respect shown, to the dignity honored or denied. Because Ethan Walker had shown them a truth as simple as it was profound, everyone watches, but only those who act truly see. The bell at Ellie's diner continued to chime, no longer a hollow sound, but a call to conscience. A reminder that every entrance was an opportunity to choose who we would be in the presence of others' humanity. And in that choice, repeated millions of times across countless interactions, lay the real revolution, quiet, persistent, and unstoppable as the sunrise.